Hello, my name is Mool Bhati. I'm Workday HCM Lead Consultant at TietoEVRY. Today we are going to go ahead and talk about Workday Learning, a very exciting and interesting feature in Workday Learning, which is Campaign. We are going to go ahead and talk about what is Campaign, how it is useful, learning campaign use cases, then the steps to create a learning campaign, and a detailed demonstration on Workday tenant about Workday learning campaign. And then we are going to go ahead and test about learning campaigns and see if the campaigns are delivered successfully to the audience or to the learners. Now let's talk about what is Workday learning campaign, or what are campaigns. Campaigns use Workday notifications to deliver packages of content to target audiences, enabling consistency in what items you send and when you send them. Campaigns can include one or more, like courses, lessons, surveys, and/or notifications. Learning campaigns are an exciting way to directly target learners or learning to members of an organization or to specific audience. Let's go ahead and talk about learning campaign use cases. Where is learning campaigns useful? Learning campaign is really useful for new hire orientation trainings, is useful in compliance trainings and annual trainings for an organizations. Learning campaigns can be used for managers and executive leadership trainings specifically to the specific set of audience. It can be used for IT security policy trainings and the Workday navigation trainings and few other trainings like understanding benefits and many more uses. Now, before we go ahead and see the demonstration, we need to understand what are the steps of creating a campaign. We need to first of all identify the audience, that whom should this campaign go. For that, we have two options of creating a customer report, or we can go ahead and do it with a saved search. I'll explain what saved search is in future demonstration steps. Then we would need to go ahead and create the campaign audience. And once we have the campaign audiences ready, we need to go ahead and use those audiences and create a campaign. And once the campaign is ready, we need to go ahead and launch it immediately, or maybe we can schedule it for future dates. Doing so, we would be able to go ahead and complete the launch of campaign, and I'll go ahead and demo that in a minute. Okay, so now we are going to go ahead and see the demonstration into the Workday tenant. I'm logged in as Logan McNeil, who has the learning admin rights, and this is a dummy tenant where we do not have any live data. So as we have discussed that we would first of all need to go ahead and identify the audiences. We would need to go ahead and see the report, which is a Workday delivered report and is called Find Workers. We would go ahead and see the list of employees or workers or users on this tenant. And we have the facets wherein we can go ahead and sort our search and distinguish and identify who all we would need for this training. So we would need to go ahead and send this campaign or this training to the managers only, and I would go ahead and send it or reduce my search by the location. So we wanted to go ahead and send it to the managers who are in location Atlanta, and I see that we have 3 people already there. So I'll go ahead and save the search, and I would name it as managers in Atlanta. So I have named it, and I would keep this name for future reference because I would need to go ahead and create the audience as well once we have the saved search. It says it has been successfully saved, but just to make sure we have our search created, we would need to go ahead and see if we have managers in Atlanta. Yeah, so we have it here on place. Now I'll go back to Logan and see on the learning admin dashboard. I have different facets and different dashboards, but I would go ahead and go to campaign dashboard. Under campaign dashboard, I have an option to create campaign, edit, view, and many more options, launch as well. But before we go ahead and create a campaign, we need to go ahead and create the audience. As we have the saved search now, I would go ahead and create audience, and I would name it again as managers in Atlanta. I can give the description as well if needed, or we can just leave it blank as well, but it's recommended to give the description. But for now, for demo, I would leave it blank. What kind of campaign or audience is this? So this is learning, so we would need to go ahead and decide that this should be available for learning campaign, and we would need to go ahead and make it required if it's a required training. If not required, then we can leave it blank. What kind of search we are looking for? Do we need to send it to an organization? Do we need to send it to a customer through a customer report and all? But we already have a saved search, so we would go ahead and select that. And in the selection, we need to find what was our saved search. So we said manager in Atlanta. Managers in Atlanta. So this is how we have created our audience. Now we have audience ready. We would go ahead and create the campaign. I would again go ahead and name it a training or a campaign for managers in Atlanta, or I can save or name it as required training for managers in Atlanta. I would need to go ahead and search the type again, what kind of campaign this is, and I have searched it or selected learning campaign. Again, we need to go ahead and decide the category, as we have selected required learning category. When we were creating audience, we need to ensure that we select the category of required learning itself. We need to go ahead and search the audience. We can create audience from here as well, but we have already created our audience and we have it under saved search, which is managers in Atlanta. We would go ahead and use that existing audience list. When do I want it to start it? I wanted to start it right today, and end date may be 31st of the month. So I have selected the dates. I'll review everything good, and now I need to go ahead and add an item. So what is that I wanted to send them? Do I need to send them an learning course, a program, a lesson, or just a notification? I would select a course, and I would go ahead and see what kind of different courses we have. So I would go ahead and select Introduction to Workday Learning. Then we have the setup. So in setup, we need to go ahead and see, I'm going to go ahead and send it just through emails. I don't want to send them on the mobile notifications. Then I would need to go ahead and set up my message. So from where this message or campaign is going, it's going from GMS at myworkday.com. So you can change your name as well, or you can say that learning department or learning team. But normally companies do keep their email address, and you can overwrite it as well. If you want the audiences to reply back, you can just go ahead and provide the email address of the learning team, and I would just go ahead and put test at this point of time. But otherwise, in real life scenario, you can say learning department at tieto.com or the organization. You can mention the subject, what kind of training is this, and why is this going to these managers. So I have mentioned that this is a learning training or a required training for managers in Atlanta, and you can select more detailed information as well. I can go ahead and show you if I wanted to send it to a specific user and I need to send them by name, I can select the field here as well. So let me see if I can get something as first name, or so I wanted to say hi first name. This is a required training. This is a required training for managers in Atlanta so that they know that, oh, okay, this is needed for them and need to be completed. I'll click next and I would select the date when this should go. I wanted to send it right today. I'll review everything. It looks good and I'll save it. By doing so, I have my first content ready to be sent to these set of audiences. I can edit it. I can delete it if you don't like. And I can go ahead and add the reminders if you wanted to send the reminder after a week or so. So let me go ahead and add a reminder. And I would say this is a required training for managers in Atlanta. And I again wanted to send it through email only, the reminder. And I would say the message, if any. So I would say test message or gentle reminder. Gentle reminder for training. I'll select again and say it here. Do I want to send the managers this time? If it's not completed in a week or so and you want managers to be into the CC, I can go ahead and say all workers managers. So managers would be copied to this mail this time so that managers also know that there's a compliance training which is needed. On the due date, or you wanted to send the reminder before the due date. So I would say I wanted to send it relative to due date, and I would say 5 days before the due date. 5 days before the due date. Do I need to select a time? So I would say 10 a.m. 5 days before the due date of the training. If you wanted to set up a recurring reminder but not needed, so we'll send it right now as it is. I'll keep it. It'll not go right now, but it'll go 5 days before the due date. But this is just a feature which I wanted to show you. I'll save the reminder. And then I would say and complete it. If you want to add more items to it, let's add one more item. I would go ahead and add one more item and I will say test item, or I would say new training for managers in Atlanta. And again, I wanted to send a learning course. I would select the course and preparing for leadership. I would move forward and send it via email. I would again write a mail and a message similar to what I have done previous course. I would set up the date. So this time we have more options. So when do I want to send this next training? Do I want to send it today, or I wanted to send it upon completion of the item which I have already created? So the first training which we have created, once a user completes the previous training, then only this new training would go. So send immediately upon the completion of the item. And we would say next, we would review, and we'll save. So now the second training which we are talking about, new training for managers in Atlanta, will only go once a user complete this first training, which is required training for managers in Atlanta. So I see that everything is good and I would go ahead and submit this. Once we have submitted it, we already get an option of launching a campaign or editing a campaign. So I would go ahead and launch this campaign right now. I created a learning campaign and it was the required training for managers in Atlanta. And I would need to go ahead and run it now. If you wanted to make it for future, you can do it daily recurrence, or you wanted to do it weekly, you can schedule that as well. But I wanted to do it right now just to show the demo. I can create a request and I will say it managers in Atlanta training, and I will click OK. So now this would going to go ahead and take some time. By the time it will be completed, if you wanted to see the status of it, you can see it in Process Manager, but we would go ahead and log in as one of the users right now and see if a user have received the training or not. In a minute, I'll proxy in as one of the users. Okay, so now we are logged in as Julia, who was one of the users or one of the managers in Atlanta. And I can see that in her notifications, she have received a content to be looked into, and it says this is a required training for Atlanta. And you see that this is the message which we created. So I'll go ahead and click on view course. I'll go ahead and complete it and all that, or I would add it. Also, there's an option to see it from the learning, and I can go ahead and see that it was one of the required training for her. So she need to go ahead and complete it before 31st July 2020. So this shows that our testing was successful, and thanks for watching the demo. It was great talking to you.